Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to talk about extended events, auditing DDL and DML actions without affecting server performance. My name is Wally Pons. I'm a SQL Server DBA with over 25 years of experience in Microsoft SQL Server and all the types of RDBMS. You may contact me in one or more ways as shown below. I'm also the founder of the group of PBSoft since 2013, instructor, writer, and IT consultant since the late 90s with a growing customer base. Defining extended events. SQL extended events were first introduced with SQL Server 2008. They were designed as a lightweight and more efficient mechanism for collecting event-driven data about a SQL Server instance and its databases, intended to eventually replace SQL Trace and SQL Profiler. While initially lacking a graphical user interface and requiring T-SQL configuration, subsequent versions, notably SQL Server 2012, introduced graphical user interface tools and other enhancements to improve usability. What we are going to see next is how we can use extended events for specific auditing purposes in SQL Server, in this case referring to DDL, data definition language, and DML, data manipulation language commands. DML commands. These commands are used to manage and manipulate the data within the database objects, like tables. They are composed of insert, update, and delete. DDL commands. These commands are used to define and manage the structure of database objects. They are mainly composed of alter, create, drop, and truncate. Note: although the truncate command affects data, it's classified as DDL because it operates on the table structure by deallocating and reallocating data pages, rather than deleting rows individually like delete. Now we're going to create our extended event. First, you need to go to Object Explorer, Expand Management, then expand Extended Events. Under Extended Events, you're going to see Sessions. You right-click on Sessions, say New Session. We're going to expand the form. We have better visibility. And we provide a session name. This is mandatory. Okay. If we need to, we could use a template. There are some templates here for specific purposes. For example, our groupings for the templates, which are logs and blocks, profiler equivalents, query execution, and system monitoring. Depending on what you want to do, you could use one of these templates potentially. And as I mentioned before, extended events can replace the SQL Server Profiler, as you can see right here, where you can do the most common tasks. But it's not limited to these tasks. You can do beyond that. Other things you could do with the extended event is provide a schedule option, which allows you to start the extended event and start collecting live data and even do causality tracking. For our example, we're just going to go straight to events. And here's the event library. And as you can see, we got plenty of events available. And if you click in any of them, it will bring you the information right here below. And you can see all of the fields that you can use in your extended event. You can use more fields if you use the configure option and use the other available fields as well. In our case, we're going to go straight to the extended event we're going to configure, which is SQL statement completed. So you can see you can do a quick search here. We're going to select the event and we're going to add it to the selected events list. Once there, and to make additional changes, we're going to click on configure. Under configure, we have three tabs. One is called global fields. It says actions within parentheses. The second one is called filter, which is the predicate. And the third one is the event fields. We're just going to modify global fields and filter. Okay. So in global fields, I'm going to add some additional fields. First one is going to be client app name, client connection ID, client host name. Also, database name is going to be another one. Session ID, which is easy to find because it's in alphabetical order. SQL text, and also user name. Now I need to add the filters for my extended event. I'm going to show you how to add the first one, then I'm going to do a quick cut and come back with all the filters that I need to add for the extended event. First one I'm going to add It's a field type statement, okay? Because I need to look for a statement, and I'm going to use an operator. The operator I'm going to use is a like operator, just the only like operator that I have here. The value is going to be alter. Okay, now I need to keep adding the rest of the statements. And for that, I'm going to make a quick cut and come back really quick. And just like that, we're done implementing our statements. One thing you need to be aware of is that the and the or conditions do work differently, at least on their extended events. You need to group the or conditions in order for them to work correctly with the and conditions. And to do that, you click on the first one, and then you press the shift key on your keyboard and click on the last one. Once you do that, you right click anywhere and say group clauses. Now you're grouping the or clauses. Okay. Now we can go to data storage because we need to store the events somewhere. Here is where we create a target, and there are different types of targets as you can see here. We're going to select the event file, which is the equivalent of a SQL trace file. You have other options as well, but we're going to focus on the event file. Let's click on that one. And as you can see, it will recommend a name for the event file. This name here does not have a path on your operating system, so we need to create one. Let's copy the whole name. I want to use this whole name. So let's click on Browse, and I'm going to go to my D drive. I'm going to go to MS SQL. I'm going to go to SQL dump. That's where I want to put my name. I'm going to paste the name and click OK. As you can see, it has already a path, a logical path, the file name, and even the extension. Other settings that you can work with on this section is the maximum file size. The default is 1 gig. It could be less than that. You have megabytes and gigs for the option. You have the option to enable file rollovers since you're going to have more than one file. In this case, you're going to have 5 files. You can have more than 5 if you wish to do so. For the time being, we're going to leave it as 5. Now let's go to advanced. There's two settings that you need to change here just to be on the safe side. There's one setting called maximum dispatch latency. Now, maximum dispatch latency is the maximum time to flush the settings collected by memory on SQL Server into the target that we just created. But that is the maximum. Usually it goes right away as soon as it is collected. But just to avoid any latency, I like to lower that to 15 seconds, okay, just to be on the safe side. Also, there's a max memory setting for the extended events that are collected. 4 megabytes should be more than okay. But again, I like to make this a little bit bigger, so it could be 8 megabytes. Just for the record, you can use other measurements like kilobytes or gigabytes if you want to have a much bigger max memory size collection. It's not necessary unless you have a lot of events that you need to capture. You might want to do that if you have a lot of events. In this case, this is a very small event. It's just one of the one event from the event library. It's not going to collect a lot of data, believe me. The maximum event size is also paired with the size of the target that we just created, which is 1 gig. So we don't have to change that. Now we click OK, and we're done. Now that we're done configuring our extended event, it's time to start a session. But before we do that, I want to show you the folder that I chose for the target file. As you can see on the screen, the folder is totally empty. As soon as I start a session, it will create a file for me. Let's proceed and right-click on the extended event and select Start Session. Let's go back to the folder, and there is my first extended event file. The file has exactly the same name that I specified and the extension. The only difference is that it contains a sequential number. This sequential number is automatically generated, and for every file that it generates, it will have a different sequential number. This is something handled by the extended event. Now we're going to test the extended event just to make sure that it works correctly. But before I do that, I want to show you this script that you see on the screen. This script will be available for download from my GitHub repository. The name and location will be available on the video notes, and it creates the same extended event that you just saw. You don't need to go through every screen and selecting every option. It's already done here for you. Just need to execute it. And also, you need to make sure that you have a valid path for the file. If you don't have a D drive with MS SQL and SQL dump, you can change that and it will create a file for you. Okay, testing time. Now, we're gonna execute a series of statements here. First one we're going to execute is a drop table if exists. This is okay. This is a testing table, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to execute it. This will be a drop table statement, and it's done. Then I'm going to execute a create table, an insert. I'm going to verify the insert, and there it is. I'm going to delete the last line, the one that corresponds to the J value. Okay, I'm going to run it like this, and I'm going to double check that it worked correctly. And yes, J no more. For the last two events, I'm going to have a truncate and a drop. On purpose, I'm going to execute both statements at the same time. Now it's time to go and see the results on the extended event. There are two ways of seeing the collected information by the extended event. One is by using a query like the one you see on the screen. This one I will explain later. And the other one is by using the interface. First, you locate the extended event, click the plus sign, click the event file, right click, and select View Target Data. Once there, you can see all of the collected events. You see below, you have the details window and you have the records on the top. Every time you click one of them, all the pertaining information will show below. As you can see, some of the columns that you see are client application name, which is the application from where it was run, host name for the client, duration, this is in microseconds, session ID, username, and there are two specific fields that I want to explain here. One is called SQL_text and the other one is called statement. At first sight, they appear to collect the same information, but they don't. They have different purpose. The reason for that is because statement will only acquire the statement that was executed one at a time, whereas SQL_text will collect the whole batch. If you remember the last step we did, which is a truncate and a drop, we can go there and revisit. And if you look below on the details, specifically on the last one, on the statement portion, it shows a drop. But if you look at the SQL text, it shows a truncate followed by the drop. This is because we run the statement in a batch, meaning that we run two statements at once. Nevertheless, the statement will store each statement by separate. You have the truncate in one record and you have the drop in another record. But you still have the SQL_text showing both truncate and drop. The information at top can be configured. The way to do that is by right-clicking any of the columns and choosing Choose Columns. All of the columns that we specified during the configuration of the extended event are available here. You just need to click here and you can see them all. Or if you just want to see some of them, you can do that as well. For the time being, let's click OK. And let's look at all the columns that we have available for our extended event. There are also different ways in which you can change the way that the information displays here. One way is by having an option on the menu. You have an extended events option on the menu, which is only available when you're seeing the extended event. If we go to a query window, the extended events menu will go away. If we go back to the extended event itself, the extended events menu will come back. On this menu, you have basically the same options as right-clicking any of the columns, plus some other options as well. For example, you can hide or display the details pane, which is right here. This is useful if you have a lot of records and a lot of information that you need to filter, so you don't have the details on the way. Let's put it back again. You have a filter option. It's a very well advanced filter option. You can set by a time filter, by the hour, the minute, and even the second. You can use conditions for a specific columns and use different operators with different values. You also have grouping, where you can group the information in many different ways. Let's do a quick example by grouping by the user name, which in our case is not very beneficial because we only have one single user. But imagine that we have several users. We could filter by the user, by the action. We could filter by so many things. Let's remove that grouping by now. You also have aggregation, which is in conjunction with grouping. Aggregation will give you a summary of specific values as well. You have a quick find, which will search any of the columns or all of the columns in many different ways, and will even allow you to use a wildcard or a regular expression if you need to do so. We have choose columns, where you can select which columns you want to look at. We have something called display settings. Now, display settings is very useful if you have a specific way of looking at things. For example, I have all of the columns here, but if I do, for example, column removal, and I want to get that view back again, I can do so by saving this specific setting. Let me display settings and let me go to save as. I already have one saved, so I'm going to save another one. Let me call this my view 2, that view setting. Let's click save. And now let's remove some columns. Let's go to the extended events menu. Let's choose to remove certain columns, or let's remove them all and just bring back two columns. For example, just two columns. Let's say that I want to bring back the information that I had here before. I could just go and choose all the columns one by one or all of them. But maybe I don't want all of them. Maybe I just want a portion of them. If that's the case, all I got to do is go to the extended events menu, display settings, open, then I open my view 2 settings, and everything is back the way it was before. Another option that you have is the export. This one is pretty interesting because you can export in three different ways. You can export to an XEL file, which is an extended event file. It's basically doing a backup to your extended event data. You can export to a table. In this case, it's a table on your SQL Server instance or another instance in another server, or you can export to a CSV file. A CSV file is a comma separated value file. We're going to test each and every one of them now. We'll try the XEL file first. For that, it will ask for a location where we want to export. I'm going to use the same location, and I'm just going to give it a different name. I'm going to call it my first export. I'm going to click save. And if I look at my folder, there it is. I can take this file to another SQL instance and just read the events. I'm going to show you the query in a few, just so you know how it works. Let's do another export. This time we're going to do it to a SQL table. You select table, and by default, SQL Server will ask you, where do you want to export it? It will assume that you want to export it to another server, so it will give you a connection setting. Since we're going to export it to this very own server, we just leave the same parameters here. This is the name of the server, corporate data. I already have my credentials in, which are administrator credentials, and click connect. When you do that, it will display to which database you want to save that information. In this case, I'm going to leave it as corporate data underscore east1, but I can select another database if I need to. I can choose a different schema if I have a different schema, and then I can type the table name that I want. If I type the table name, it will create it for me. But if you already did an export and you want to clean that table, or if you have a table that has the default parameters with the default columns, you can choose that table from the drop down. In my case, I'm going to use a new table. I'm going to call this actually new export, just to give it a nifty name. There you go. Once I do the export, I can just go straight to databases, corporate data east one, tables, and it should be there. New export. I can browse my table by doing a select top 200, and there is my data. Okay. Now, let's do the last one, which is exporting to a CSV file. CSV is a comma separated value file. It's pretty useful if you want to read this information in an Excel file, or if you want to export it to another system. Let's say MySQL or a Postgres or any other system that you have that you want to export your data. So let's give it a meaningful name, export CSV. That should be fine. Let's click save. Let's go to the SQL dump folder, and there is the information. Now let's open that with Notepad++. And there it is. So you can see I got exactly the same information I had on the view with a comma separated value. I can do anything I want with that information. Now let's take a quick look at how we can read this very same information using a query. Basically, a query that uses a function, a system function, to read directly from the file. Now I'm going to show you how to use the function to read the extended event file. The name of the function, you can see it here. This is the name of the function. And the one parameter you need to pass to the function is the path along with the file name. Not just the file name. See, if you take a quick close look here, there is a wildcard or an asterisk. This means that it will read anything that's after the name and before the extension. To understand that, we need to go back to the physical file. Okay. Now, here's a physical file. The physical file, as you can see here, has exactly the same name we gave it, except for this portion, which we explained previously before. This is a sequential number. You don't have to worry about this because this is something managed by the extended event itself. And the reason for that is because it will create several files, and the only difference is going to be this sequential number. That's why we need to specify a wildcard while using the function to read the file. Let's read the file and see what we get back from it. If we get some of the information because we're using an XML data.value function to retrieve some of the columns. We can retrieve them all if we wanted to, but we retrieve some of the columns only. If you want to see the whole information, you can see it on the XML data column. If you click any of the rows, it will open up an XML data file where you have all of the information that was captured by the extended event. The good thing about this is that you can take this into another table and play with that information. Let's do an into to another table, in this case to a temporary table, and see how we handle that information. Okay, now let's query that table, and the table has a where clause. We're just going to see inserts and truncates in this case. And there it is. If we want to see the backup that we did previously, which is this one here, we can just copy that to the path. No need to use the wildcards in this case because it's only one file. And there you go. Let's comment the into so we don't get an error message. And let's select the file. And there it is. This is a snapshot of the information as it was in the moment we did the backup. This is something you can do in another server if you copy the existing XEL files or if you do an export to an XEL file. And this will finalize the video. Would you like to hire me for your SQL questions and solutions? You can reach me at Fiverr or at Upwork. To download a copy of the script used in this and other videos, please visit my GitHub repository. Please like and subscribe. You can also leave a comment or message if you wish to do so. Thank you for watching.